Okay, so you might want to know why 3 or 4 years ago, they asked me to do the safety talk. And, good, fair question is why me? Well, you all know about the town essentials and you always have them and you always carry them, right? I guess that's a rhetorical question since I can't hear you. Well, I have 23 essentials. And they figured if I was going to carry that much stuff, I might want to talk about safety. So I do. It's dear to my heart. I worked in a paper mill for years, and that's a place you really want to be safe. So is the woods. So this is my philosophy on safety and emergency management, stolen from Ben Franklin, an ounce of prevention. And that's what safety is worth a pound of cure. And that pound is painful. So. Okay. Okay, favorite quote on safety. There ain't no cure for stupid. And to me, what safety is being stupid. And sometimes there's ignorance involved and you can kind of cure that. And sometimes inattention. But to be up on that ledge like that, that's just plain stupid. Now, this is also stupid. You see that picture? We talked about moose, and they are big and they are mean. Now you see the people in the fog taking their picture. What else is wrong with this picture? There's some idiot on this side taking a picture of the moose and the people. So there's two things going wrong here. Don't let that happen to you. Okay, so we're going to talk about safety, curing stupid, or if you put it more maybe politically correctly, managing hazard potentials. That girl is not managing her hazard very well. Those little floppy, they look like thongs with high heels on them. I'm just amazed at that picture. Okay, so you need to be prepared to be safe. Physically prepared, we talked about the conditioning before. Also, though, if you've got any medical conditions like asthma or allergies or whatever, you need to be ready for that, prepared, bring your medicine with or whatever. And also, if you've got an injury, if you twisted an ankle a week ago, you might be a little slower or not be able to walk as far as you normally are. So you got to be prepared for your physically. Mentally, you need to be psyched up to go. It's somebody saying, "Oh, I don't want to go there. It's just no fun," Well, that's not the right mental attitude to have when you go on a backpack. You want to be psyched up, ready to go. Mentally, there also is a fear factor, particularly with newer backpackers. I call it the Dorothy syndrome, right from the Wizard of Oz. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then there's almost the flip side of that. There's the mentality, the machismo one. It's like, I'm invincible, overconfident. That'll get you into probably more trouble than the other ones. And technically, you guys are getting prepared for that. That's awesome. You're going to learn about the equipment and have all the right stuff. You don't have much experience yet, but you're going to get that. So I think that's just a great thing that's going on to get you prepared. I love this sign on that. It's extremely dangerous, this trail. These are the safety rules: hiking boots, no sneakers, no flip-flops, no drugs or alcohol, stay on the trail, be in good physical condition. It's just like right on, because people have been seriously hurt or killed not following these rules. So they kind of lay that one right out there for you. Oops, I get too many. Okay, being prepared, then the next thing is be risk averse. You just don't want to take risks. And there's two kinds. There's preventable risk. That's not getting in harm's way. You can prevent it altogether. Read the sign, danger of falling, don't go there. So you can prevent that risk versus an unpredictable risk. That's something that comes at you out of the blue and you don't know from what direction it's going to come. But what you need to do is get up out of harm's way when you identify it. Don't just hang around watching that news. Beat feet out of there. And I love Johnny Cash's line here. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. And that's in all directions, in front of you and behind, as well as up and down. So pay attention. And I think that's the next slide. Oh, now I don't know, Casey, what's going on, buddy? I can't. Okay, pay attention. It's just, am I being too impatient or?
No, I think it's just when I'm typing and you're controlling, the computer's getting confused.
Oh, okay. Okay. So pay attention to your environment. Keep it safe all the time. Okay, now, you know the expression, well, such and such a thing came up to bite me. Well, we're going to talk about what can bite you now when you're out on the trail. I love this sign, a beautiful 2-mile trail. Proceed only at your own risk. Beware of ticks, poison oak, cliffs, rattlesnakes, and other hazards. Those are some of the things that can bite you. Okay. Okay, things that can literally bite you. Mosquitoes. They're probably the most prevalent, and other than being a nuisance, there are issues. West Nile virus and stuff comes from mosquitoes. If you're out in South America, malaria. So mosquitoes are out there that'll bite you. Flies, there's all kinds. Deer flies, horse flies, black flies, they're around. Hornets are, let me talk about bees. People are allergic to those. That's one of those preparedness things. If you're allergic, take your medicine with you. I stick yellow jackets kind of in the same category with bees. The ones below that, the hornets and the wasps, they're nasty and they are aggressive. They can sting you more than once. So if you're running into a hornet's nest, get out of there quickly. Ticks are the ones that always give everybody the heebie-jeebies. They're just kind of nasty and crawl around on you, bite you. They can give you Lyme's disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So always check yourself for ticks. This is the tick season. In the spring, when it gets really hot, they diminish and kind of go away. And the last one on there, I don't know if many of you, we don't have them much here on the east side. They're called no-see-ums. They're a little tiny gnat-like thing. And you find them on the west side of the mountains, a lot of times around elk herds. And I happen to be allergic to them. I get welts like mosquito bites from these little bitty things. So on this slide, I'm going to say this, and you take it with a grain of salt, but DEET is your friend. The other thing that can be your friend is someone who, like the mosquitoes, like more than you. Now, I have my daughter, if I go hiking with her, she gets them, I'm free. There are a number of people in IMAC who the mosquitoes really like, and for a price, I will tell you their names. There's also permethrin you can spray on your gear and your clothes that'll keep stuff away as well. Okay, what else can bite you? And this is also literally, you're gonna probably have more trouble in your hiking, backpacking career with dogs or their masters more precisely than you are any of the wildlife out there. Snakes, people are afraid of snakes, rightly so. We've got some rattlesnakes on this side of the mountains, but they're not gonna attack you. They're only if you disturb them, frighten them, will they have a chance of biting at you? They don't come after you. Now, that's not always true. If you go down south, they have water moccasins that'll come and want to take a bite out of you. If you go to Australia, you're in deep trouble. But those are the two you're most likely to see, dogs and snakes. Bears, Casey talked a little bit about that in his opening social remarks. It's mentioned in your book very well, page 182, about how you fend or encounter a bear. But basically, you got to be calm. You back away slowly. Don't look a bear in the eye. You can talk gently, monotonish. Don't run. Don't move quickly. If you carry bear spray, have it ready. But generally, a black bear is going to walk away from you just like you want to walk away from it. If for some reason it attacks you, perhaps in the case of a mother bear with cubs, lay down flat on your stomach, keep your pack on to protect you, cover your head with your hands. They'll maybe take a bite or two and usually take off. Grizzlies are another story, but fortunately we don't have too many of them in Washington yet. Cougars, they're out there. We've had some right in town, but in the wild, I have seen one cougar in all my time in the woods, and that was from about a quarter of a mile away. Attacks are very, very rare. If you're encountering one, they're almost the opposite of bear. You don't run away, they'll think you're prey. Look them in the eye, stare them down, be bigger and meaner than they are. Make all kinds of noise, throw rocks at them, use your hiking poles, do whatever you can, throw stuff at them, but fight back if a cougar attacks you. Those are kind of the two standard approaches to bears and cougars. Wolves, coyotes, they're basically afraid of people. You'll rarely encounter a wolf or a coyote up close. Now, these next three don't bite you, but mountain goats can be quite aggressive. They will lick you. They like the sweat for salt, and they have big horns that are very sharp, and they can do damage. Elk and moose are great big animals, and they get very aggressive in the rutting season, which is the fall. We talked about animal experiences earlier. My most exciting one was with elk. I was working over on the Olympic National Forest and the Olympic National Park, running a section line between private land and the park. Heard these shots because it was elk season. And then I heard what I thought was thunder, and it was the elk heading for the park from the private land, so they couldn't get shot. And I had to dive behind a 6-foot wide Douglas fir stump with these 1,000-pound animals flying by me in all directions. It was scary. Okay, now this is more figurative, but what can make you feel like you've been bitten? These things don't bite, but they hurt. And logs is an interesting one. You're carrying pick your pack size, 30 pounds, and you got a log falling across the trail. You can go over it, you can go under it, you can go around it. You're off balance, so generally take your pack off. And then they all have these little branches sticking out. I don't know why they always do, but they do. And that's what's going to catch you and can cut you, stab you, bruise you. So be careful of logs. Water can bite you. If you drink bad water, and you'll hear more about that next week, it'll make you feel bad. Or if you don't drink enough, you'll get dehydration and cramps. Crossing water, I don't know if that'll come up in other talks, but if you're crossing a stream, what you want to do is face upstream, loosen your waist belt so you can slide out of the pack if you fall and have to, and shuffle up across the creek. If you can't do that, use your poles. In the worst case, have the strongest hiker cross the creek with the rope, tie it off so people can hang onto the rope and cross. And there is no shame in saying, we can't cross this thing, we're going to turn around here. Water also can be solid or liquid. So the solid kind, snow, will definitely slow you down. If you think you're going to run into it, crampons or microspikes or something can really help you out. Temperature, it can be too hot, you get heat stroke, sunburn, or too cold. Hypothermia is just not a fun thing. And that can happen in temperatures, 50 degrees if you get wet and there's a little bit of wind blowing. So you really got to watch the temperature. Cliffs, if you're walking below a cliff and there's a trail up on top of it, you got to look up, like we talked about, keeping your eyes wide open so somebody doesn't kick something off down on you. Or rocks on the ground. I have a friend that I hike with a lot. He's a doctor, and I broke my toe kicking a rock in the trail. And what he told me, his medical advice was tape it up, suck it up, breathe in, breathe out, and move on, because that's about all you can do for a broken toe. There are plants that will make you feel like you've been bitten. There's one there on the right, the picture. Rhetorical question, everybody know what that is? Well, I'll tell you, it is poison oak. And I'll show you on the next slide what that looks like. But there's other things, nettles, devil's club, that can make you miserable. The wrong mushrooms if you eat them. There are some things you can eat on the trail, huckleberries, salmonberries, oxalis, but there's plants to stay away from. Elevation can bite you, like we talked before. We live at 500 feet, you go up even a couple, 3,000, and you'll be sucking wind. But above, round numbers, 8,000 feet, you have the opportunity to get altitude sickness. And that can be very, very dangerous. The only really cure for it is to come down out of the elevation. You get headaches, get disoriented. And then something we've had much more lately that can really make you feel poorly is the smoke from forest fires. Normally you won't run into the fire itself, or shouldn't, but the smoke is everywhere and it makes it hard to breathe, and something to watch out for. Okay, what else can make you feel bitten? Your equipment. And I think you've talked enough about that one in your other classes. Boots. I'm old school with hiking boots, high tops, wool socks with liners. One of my 23 essentials is I always carry a couple of pieces of moleskin that are about that big. I had to use them once on a fella that had a pack that was too tight, and he chafed the small of his back on both sides, and we had to paste that up. So I always carry a big piece of that. Clothes, food, lack of, you'll lose energy, and they'll talk about the physiology of that. You switch from glycogen to fat, and that slows you down big time. And then puja, if you don't wash your cooking materials good, you can get into quite a bit of trouble with food. Okay, when can you get bitten? Anytime, whether you're hiking or not. In the morning, you're going to get bit by bugs. Your pack will bite you. You're stiff in the morning, try to pick up your pack and you'll pull a muscle. And something you can do, if I like to try to set my pack up on a log, up on a rock, so I kind of get under it. The friend I told you about that with his medical advice, we have a pack that I pick up his pack, hold it up for him to put on. He does it for me. Just saves you from lots of twisting and turning. Midday, the pack, again, if you take some lunchtime, you're putting it on. The one where the most injuries occur is in the afternoon from 11 till 3. You're starting to get tired. You're not paying as much attention. You're hungry, lots of stuff going on. If you're going to get hurt, that's when it is. And at night, bears, they might be around, bugs are. But probably the most dangerous thing at night is tripping over your own tent lines and face planting. Okay, so we're going to switch from safety now to when it hits the fan. And it hits the fan sometimes. So we're going to talk about ongoing maintenance to keep you from an emergency situation. We're going to talk about the emergency situation of a lost hiker, be it you or somebody in your party. We're going to talk about major incidents and minor ones. And finally, after it's all over, you talk about it. Okay, ongoing maintenance. Monitor everyone's condition regularly. Okay, talk to the people in your group. How are you doing? Well, when you ask somebody how they're doing, they're always going to say, I'm doing fine. And that is politely BS. There's stuff always going on. And it's stuff like blisters, chafing, bug bites, getting dehydrated. The best way to tell you're not getting dehydrated is you got to stop every once in a while and take a pee. I hope that's not too crude, but that's a good way to tell you're doing all right. Altitude sickness, we talked about a little. You're getting tired, fatigue, hypothermia, sunburn. I love this John Wooden, famous basketball coach. Little things make big things happen. If you can prevent this little stuff from distracting you, helping you not pay attention, you're going to do better in the long run. So ongoing maintenance is really important to me. Okay, before you leave the trailhead, before an incident happens, you want to decide in your group, if something happened, who is the leader going to be? You're looking for somebody with a training experience, a level head, and his job, if something happens, will be to assess the situation, figure out who needs to do what. When it happens, you don't know what it's going to be. Is that unpredictable event. The leader will create a plan, assign everybody tasks, and that's things like collecting up some wood to start a fire, getting water, getting food if needs be, doing first aid. So it's just, and everyone should have a job, because people, when things bad happen, they'll get mentally upset as well as any physical problems. So, the leader will make sure everybody's got something to do and that everybody's doing okay. Now, lost hiker. That lost hiker is you. Well, shame on you for being stupid in the first place, but we won't go there now. Okay, the book does a great job on this. It's chapter 8, page about 238. And what they recommend is this acronym: STOP. You sit down, calm, don't panic, take a deep breath, realize where you're at. Or, well, you can't because you're lost, but realize that you are lost. Okay, think about it, assess your situation. Don't just react to it and take off heading in some direction. Just think about it. Observe any landmarks that you have. I call it a known point. When we were looking at that Green Trails map, we came to that Trail 45. You're on the Pacific Crest Trail Route 2000. You come up to this sign, Trail 45. You can look on your map or say, I am right here. I know where this spot is. That can help you get back or stay there, because somebody's going to come by and help you to get out of there. So anything you can get to a known point, and then you take time to see what you've got for food, water, shelter, that kind of thing. So then you start signaling 3 things of anything. Whistle, that's another one of the 23 essentials. I don't know if it's one of the 10, I don't think so. But a whistle or shout, something to make noise, 3 of it. But then the next one's key. A lot of people keep doing their 3 thing, but they won't listen for who's coming. That's yelling their name or making noises. So you always want to do the listening side of that. But the best plan is stay where you are, and somebody will get to you, rather than you wandering around changing places where people need to look. But like I say, the book in my mind does a great job of explaining that. Okay, if someone else has been stupid, now you get to be the one that saves them. What you first want to do is gather up information. Where was that person last seen? And when? If it was 10 minutes ago, you got a better chance of finding of. If it was like 10 hours ago last night. And where, if it was not far away, you got a better chance than if nobody's seen them for 2 miles. What were they wearing? Color is a real important thing to know and recognize when you're in the woods. There aren't colors there that are natural. Orange is not natural. Some blues are not natural. Yellow, bright yellow, like the guys in the vests down there. So what were they wearing can give you a clue of what to look for. How were they equipped? Did they have their gear? So then after you kind of collected up the information, you make a hasty search in a close area. It's kind of a little area there outlined on that map, and see if you can't find them. That's your best shot, is that first half hour or so. In the meantime, folks that aren't searching can establish a base camp, like I talked about: food, water, smoke, noise, and everybody gathers back. Then you do a secondary search. You can pan out farther, always in pairs. Always do your searching in pairs, so you both don't get lost. And so you know how to get back. Search for about an hour. If you still can't come up with the person, then they recommend sending for search and rescue, and we'll talk about that process here in a minute. After that decision is made, you can search more if it's safe with your local group. Okay, now we're going to define incidents. There's major and minor. The minor is, if you're going to have one, that's the one to have. It's defined as the injured person can walk out. And they can walk out given they've had successful first aid on the spot, their assistance from their guys hiking with them, and there's minimal chance of complications later. And examples of those are a broken toe, which I already elaborated on, sprained ankle, wrap it up, twisted knee, like the girl in the picture is wrapping up. Sprained ankles usually are better. I carry actually 3 kinds of tape: mountaineer's tape, regular sports tape, and duct tape. If you really get in trouble, duct tape's great. You can hike out with intestinal difficulty. It's not very fun or very pretty, but you can. You break a finger, an arm, hand, you can get out. Shoulder, if your legs are good. A mended minor laceration, you have to kind of define that in your own mind, but if you can get the bleeding stopped and the laceration isn't into muscle, that kind of thing, you can usually walk out. And allergies is something that carry Benadryl in your first aid kit. So that's a minor incident. Hopefully that's the worst any of you ever see. Okay, a major incident. Evacuation is necessary. Boy, that one slide, that's a search and rescue, guys, in that left slide. Mine looks really fuzzy, and then the helicopter on the right, that's when it hits the fan. So we have a decision time. If evacuation is necessary, you contact, I say call, we'll talk about that in a minute, but contract search and rescue is a decision. And that's the decision you make if the victim will thrive, and that means they'll be doing okay up to 24 hours from that point in time, because search and rescue often takes quite a bit of time to get there. But if they've got, got a tent, you got sleeping bag, you got food, they can do okay for a while. Search and rescue is your best choice. If not, you push the button on your personal locator beacon and the helicopter's on its way. That's when the victim needs some help immediately to save their life.
Chuck, what's the response time look like when you push the button on a personal locator beacon?
I've never had to do it. They claim it'd be less than that, 2 hours, assuming you're in a spot where they can land and get to. At least that's what I've been told. Do you have any other thoughts on that, or?
No, I haven't had. I've never pushed a button either. I was in a situation one time where a person in my group wanted to hit the button, and we were dealing with hypothermia was the emergency. Was our biggest threat. And I pretty much told him that like pushing that button is not going to save you. Getting warm clothes on is what you need to do right now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you definitely need to keep that in mind. The button's still going to take 30 minutes to an hour, maybe longer. You got to manage your situation and do what you can for yourself.
Yep.
While you're waiting on the emergency responders.
Yep. No, that's absolutely right. And it sort of depends too. I think there's a lot of different systems out there. You know, there's a Spot, there's ACRs, there's just a lot of different ones that you know that may I guess take a different length of time. But okay. So getting help. First thing you want to do before you try to get the help is collect information on what's happened. Get the victim's name, age, phone number, and address. Describe the accident, what happened, location, etc. What their initial condition was and what it is currently, if it's changed. First aid, you'll hear about more. I think that's a whole class by itself, which is great. And then the type of rescue that's required. You know, do they need search and rescue, or the and first thing to look is if your phone or a radio works, you know, then call them. You know, 911 will work, although those dispatchers are a little bit what's the way to put it, scattered, and so it may go to one that's not really in the right area. Your best bet is to call the county sheriff in the county you're in and get their local search and rescue out. So check your phone first, even if there's a high spot, send somebody up to walk to that, see if you can get out that way. If you can't, oops, back up.
Oh, that was me, Chuck. I was typing and you did that.
Okay, I got to go back one more, I think. Okay, if you can't call out and you're looking for search and rescue, you have to hike out. And what you want to do is pick the best location to get help. Someplace you can find a road, maybe even a high spot that would have reception. Pick the best place and the best route to get there. Only send a couple, maybe 3 of your strongest, fastest hikers. Say, you know, go there and get this help on the way. And with phones and things now, you know, they have the GPS on them. They can know exactly where you're at. They may not be able to get to the injured person on the way from where you are, so they'll need to know how to get to them. Those hikers travel quick, safely, stick together, and then deliver the message to search and rescue and be prepared to actually lead them back to the scene. So that's a very important part of a major incident. Okay, so we've saved everybody and we're back at the home and we're going to talk about it a little bit. You know, so what were the hazards that you encountered? Were the environmental thing that happened? You know, somebody got struck by lightning or, you know, pick something. Had an equipment failure, that would be more maybe in climbing or something than actual hiking, or a human issue. You know, somebody fell down, broke their leg, slipped off a cliff. Just, you know, what were the hazards there that caused the incident to happen? And then look at what hazards could have been reduced. You know, were there safety factors we missed? You know, did the people not have the proper training or experience? Just what could we have done better? And you learn a lot from that. And sum it up by English proverb, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So that's what I've got to tell you about safety and if something happens.
Thanks, Chuck. What are your questions? I think I saw one in there about cost of personal locator beacons. Elaine mentions about $325. I think that's still about accurate. The spot might be less, but it also requires a yearly subscription. It's about $200 a year or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. I use a spot. I've had good luck with it. For good luck with it, and not that I had to push the button, but mine you can also send a couple of messages to anybody you want with email, and it's like one of the messages is okay, everything's good, we're on track. The other one is we're all okay, but we're heading on Plan B, and they know what Plan B is. So, but there's a lot of good systems out there.
Any other questions out there before we move on to talking about GPSs? Chuck, you want to tackle early? Ernie's got one.
Okay.
When you are planning a trip, is there a rule of thumb you use to estimate your time involved in planning a trip?
Oh, I'm a planner, so it takes me a while. What I usually do is do a spreadsheet, and I kind of do it where I got my say for a day where I'm going to start, what the elevation is, and then to those known points I talked about on the map, how far each of those is, what the elevation changes are, that kind of thing, just to get a feel for what the up and down and that's going to be. For a long trip, it can take quite a number of hours. For a short weekend trip, no, it doesn't take a lot of time. But like I say, I always do it pretty thoroughly, just kind of so I know what I'm getting into, especially if I take other people along. So it's good to plan in detail. But I had that one line in there where your plans often change, and I'll give you an example. Last summer, 2 summers ago, my wife and I were going to do a real easy little backpack to a place called Twin Sisters, or Twin Lakes, up in the Elkhorn Crest Mountains out of Baker, Oregon. It was 2.3 miles. We were in good shape. It was pretty steep, about 2,300 feet. But what we didn't count on is 2 things we didn't really think about. Is there was a forest fire in the area, and so it was really smoky, and it was the hottest day of the year. I think they recorded 108 down in Baker. Oh, and by the way, we happened to be going from about 6,000 feet to 8,500 feet. So that 2.3 miles, despite all of our planning, took us about 5 hours. So it was ugly. So you plan the best you can, and what happens, happens.
Chuck, do you have that trip planning spreadsheet? Do you mind emailing that to me and I can send it out to the group?
I can send you out one. Let's see. Yeah, I can just pick one, say for maybe a short chunk of the PCT or something. I think I could do that Excel spreadsheet just so you can, see from day to day and the elevation changes and pluses and minuses, stuff like that. Yeah, sure.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it.
I'll do that.
Are there any other questions out there? We're running a little bit long. We ran long every class, but if not, I'm getting ready to run into GPS.